I think at the moment, the way we're going, like the earth is I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this podcast.
Say whatever you want. Yeah,
the earth is and we need to do something to and I think it has to be important to everyone. Like humanity doesn't have good odds right now. That's my slightly doom and gloom answer.
Well, James, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, you're the founder of Encore, cool name by the way.
Thank you.
Which Forbes described as the Airbnb for live musicians. Tell me a little bit more about the business.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description from Forbes. We're a marketplace for booking live musicians. We help our customers book bands, singers, DJs, any type of live music for any type of event. But about half of our business is in weddings. So we're one of the biggest providers of wedding musicians in Europe.
Awesome. That's quite a cool claim to fame. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, yeah. And I think, weddings are the biggest days of people's lives. So the product we're selling is often like a moment someone will remember, like a peak experience for the rest of their life. And it doesn't matter if they've spent, £300 on a soloist or £3,000 on a band. It's usually like a moment that will stick with them forever.
Okay, cool. So you've built this successful business, and in order to do so, you've raised over $1 million. Would it be multiple?
We've raised just over 3 million.
So 3 million now. Okay, cool. Crunchbase needs updating, but that's okay.
I don't know if it needs to be updated.
Keep it a secret.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs that I speak to, perhaps a little bit more early stage on this podcast, they really struggle when trying to raise funds from investors and pitch themselves and go out to market. You've been able to do that successfully. I imagine facing a ton of rejection along the way. What advice would you give to people that are kind of going through that fundraising phase and are looking just to get their first dollar, never mind, 3 million?
I think investors love to see progress and traction. And there's this slightly cliched line that investors like to invest in lines, not dots. So when you meet an investor for the first time, that's like a dot. And then between meetings, hopefully you make progress with your business. That's the line. You go and meet them a second time and they see how far you've come in, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And they think, wow, this team know how to execute. And they've come a long way since I spoke to them. They've even tried some of the ideas that I suggested they try. I want to invest. In order to do that, you need, if you're only, a team of 2 people, for example, one of you should be fundraising, and I think the other one should absolutely not be fundraising. And you need someone continuing to push the business forward every single day. Our very first round, both of us, my co-founder and myself, went to all investor meetings for a few months. And the business kind of slowed down because we weren't really working on the business, we were just pitching it. And I think that's the death trap that some early stage companies fall into, is they are so busy fundraising that actually the business that was growing quite well before the fundraise has now stalled. Keep the business growing, only have one person fundraising.
I love that, because getting investment usually is not a one-off meeting and then here's the check, amazing, James, go to the races.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah, occasionally.
There have been a couple of investors that have really surprised me. I've met them for 1 hour and they have put in a big check, but they are the exception and they're very rare. Yeah.
So in terms of the rule, it takes multiple touch points. It takes many meetings, many coffees, many Zooms, many points of persuasion. So if you can show progress at each level, then that's amazing. It shows that they're investing in something that's growing and succeeding. However, like you mentioned, if you're not actually building and staying in the thick of it, then the story is not that exciting, is it? If it doesn't develop and get more enticing over time.
Exactly. And investors get so many emails, so many pitches. Everyone has their next big idea. There's no shortage of ideas, but the number of companies that are actually growing very fast with, real demand from customers, incredible reviews, product market fit, those are incredibly rare. So if you send an email to an investor that says, 50% month-on-month revenue growth, and then you just show them a chart that is like exponential in early stage revenue growth, they will pay attention because that will stand out amongst 100 other entrepreneurs saying, I've got this idea and I think it could be great. And I've not really done anything so far, but if you give me money, I'll try and make it work. Yeah. Investors don't want to give you money to see if something's going to work. They want to sort of add fuel to the fire, like rocket fuel to a rocket that's already taking off.
Yeah, exactly. I can testify to that. I do a very small amount of early stage angel investing, and the best deals that I've landed are ones where I've initially kind of said no or ignored the email, and then I've just been included on the monthly investor emails and updates, and I've seen over time the progress. So I can speak firsthand to that. One thing that I love about your platform, which kind of developed over time as well, is you've got a bit of a sustainability angle to it. So,
yeah, we have, and it's Earth Week this week.
It's Earth Week.
It is. It was Earth Day yesterday, so this is very timely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So every time somebody books a musician, you plant a tree.
We do more, yes. So we plant one tree for every booking, but we also offset all the carbon emissions of the travel. Okay. So every gig involves a musician usually getting in a car, or multiple musicians getting in a van, driving to a venue somewhere. It could be, half an hour away. Sometimes at the weekends, people are driving like 3-4 hours to play at a wedding, driving 3-4 hours back. And that obviously emits carbon dioxide. Yeah. So musicians tell us how they're getting to a gig, like car, plane, train, hopefully not plane, but sometimes plane. And we calculate the carbon footprint of that gig, and then we offset it with our partner called Ecology. So yeah, we've been doing that since August 2021, I think. So 2.5 years.
Do you know how many trees you planted?
I do, because last week it hit 40,000.
Oh, wow.
Which we're really happy with.
It's like a rainforest.
It's massive. It's actually massive. We filmed a video last year for a Crowdcube campaign, and we tried to visualize, back then it was 25,000 trees. And it was enormous. We had a drone, and we sort of pulled all the way back and roughly calculated how big that was. So I'm really proud of this, and I keep saying to our team, I want our competitors to copy this. I don't want it to be a super unique thing to Encore. I would love everyone in the industry to be offsetting the emissions, planting trees, doing whatever they can to help the planet that's burning at the moment.
So why is sustainability important to you?
I think there's a famous campaign called No Music on a Dead Planet.
That's true.
And
that's true.
I think at the moment, the way we're going, the Earth is I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this podcast.
Say whatever you want.
The Earth is and we need to do something to and I think it has to be important to everyone. Humanity doesn't have good odds right now. That's my slightly doom and gloom answer.
No, I'm with you. I agree. Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about mindsets. During your TEDx talk, the key idea which you shared was that you said, surround yourself with people that are better than you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this.
You've done good research. Well, I think it's the best place to learn when you're around other people who are ahead of you on a journey you want to go on. Yeah. Or if you're in a peer group of people who are very ambitious and trying to do sort of out of the ordinary things. So in the TEDx talk, I talk about being at a music school. Until the age of 11, I was in a primary school and was known as being good at music. And then I got to this music school and I was one of the worst. And that was quite a humbling experience, but that helped me develop very quickly as a musician. I went to Cambridge. I felt like an idiot at Cambridge because everybody did seem to be more intelligent than I was. But that still got the best out of me. And then I joined an accelerator called Entrepreneur First. I was the second youngest person on our cohort of 50. There were people there who had started businesses before, people there with PhDs and masters. And I felt really out of my depth, but I was also inspired by, this cohort of 50 ambitious people trying to start companies. I think someone with a fragile ego might find that environment intimidating and might not enjoy being, sort of bottom of the heap, so to say. But I actually think that's the best place to learn. And if you can just put your ego aside, that's where you learn the most. Okay. And we're in a group called Founders. And I love being in Founders because there are so many people further ahead than me in the entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. I find that really inspiring, really motivating. And I'd much prefer to be, again, small fish in a big pond than in a small group of, well, here's an analogy. In my friendship group from university, I'm one of the only people that started a company.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to welovealpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now.
So you mentioned then you studied at the University of Cambridge and Entrepreneur First. So if you had to pick one, I'm putting a gun to your head right now, if you had to pick one, right? Formal education, like the formalist of education at Cambridge, or the EF program and accelerator. If you had to pick one, which one would you pick?
That's a good question. I think, well, I wouldn't have a company if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't met my co-founder, had all the support I had from Entrepreneur First. But then I wouldn't have gone into Entrepreneur First if I hadn't been at Cambridge, because they were specifically targeting the computer science course at like Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial in the early days.
Yeah.
But if I could only choose one, I'd probably choose university. I think, knowing myself, I would have still started a company and it might have taken longer. I might not have had all the support and help and guidance of EF. But I knew even at university I wanted to start a company. I had my own small startup at uni. I made something like £1,000 in total from this business, but that was like, you know, I added banner images to a website, and local businesses gave me hundreds of pounds to add one line of code to my website. So when I was like 19, I thought, this is it, I've cracked life. I need to just do this at a bigger scale and I'll be, you know, retired by 25.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have gone to Cambridge because I met so many incredible people there. I threw myself into music and sport, and I developed a lot as a person. And I think if I'd just gone straight into starting my own business without the university experience that sort of molded me, I don't think I'd have made it where I am now. A rambly answer, but I'd choose university.
Okay, fair enough. And Cambridge, the degree, I imagine, was a lot longer than the EF program itself as well, right? That was like, what, a couple of weeks as opposed to a couple of years?
The EF program that we did was a 3-month pre-program, like every Friday in the summer, and then 6 months. Cambridge was 3 years, but actually the terms were only 8 weeks each. So the degree only totaled like 72 weeks in total. Yeah. It's pretty intense.
I heard that you, at some point, thought about perhaps almost quitting Cambridge or going to a different university. Is that right?
It was suggested to me by my tutor that I think about it.
Okay.
In my first and second year at university, I threw myself into lots of different activities. I was playing in orchestras. I joined a barbershop group. I had a band. I joined the rowing team in second year because I thought I'm never going to get a chance to do this again in Cambridge. I might as well. I was doing everything apart from my degree, and what that usually leads to is a bad exam result at the end of the year. So I got a third in my second year, a pretty low third, and my tutor said, third year is going to be harder than this. Do you think going to a different university might be easier for you? And I said, it might be easier, but I don't want to do that. I know that, you know, in the first 2 years, I haven't really applied myself, and I'm going to have one final crack at this in third year. And in third year, I did tone down, you know, all of the extra stuff. I actually focused on my degree. But the thing that changed, in third year, we had some entrepreneurship modules. We had some user experience modules. Suddenly, this degree that was very theoretical and mathematical became very commercial. And so I really enjoyed those courses. I also did a project where I built a synthesizer in the web browser. And I was into music and loved this project, and that project did quite well. So I managed to turn it around, and I got a 2-1, and my parents didn't disown me. But yeah, it was touch and go. And you know, they were encouraging me to go somewhere else because they didn't know if I would make it in the final year.
Sure. Well, look at you now. You managed to pull it off. Yeah. A few years ago, you did a great Medium blog post on OKRs, which means objectives and key results for people that don't know. Tell me a little bit about how you set goals and, I guess, advice for others. It's an area that I love and I've talked a lot about before, but what's your view on setting and achieving targets?
In my personal life, in my company, or just generally?
Just whatever comes to you.
Well, I think when it comes to goals, I don't want to use too many cliches, right? But I think consistent discipline is what helps you achieve something. Yeah. So showing up every day, and whether you feel like it or not, putting the work in. that tends to lead to the result that you're looking for if you stick at it and you have the right goal. I think it's very easy in life or in business to spend a long time dreaming up these wonderful goals and thinking about strategy, and you've got your vision board and you've got the 5-year plan, and it all sounds incredible. And actually, when you get down to it and when you start executing, if you don't have good systems in place and you're not doing the right work every single day and measuring that work, and you're not accountable to someone else, then those sort of goals and dreams will remain goals and dreams. So I think habits are important in my personal life. When I'm feeling organized, I'm sort of tracking my daily habits and tracking the ones that matter. I think accountability is incredibly important. When I tried the whole personal OKR system, I had a friend who was my accountability partner, and he also had his own set. And once a month we'd meet up and we'd just say, how's it going? Like, are you making progress? Have you been to the gym? Have you, saved the amount of money that you wanted to save? Have you read the books you wanted to read? And for me, that's really motivating. I don't want to turn up to a drink or a coffee with a friend and say, I haven't done what I said I was going to do. It's really grating. It's quite embarrassing. Yeah. But if I had just set these goals in isolation by myself and not had anyone that I was accountable to, then there's not really any sort of consequence or slight embarrassment, or maybe even shame, which is a strong word, but there's none of the accountability, and so I don't think it's as effective. So in your personal life, I really recommend getting an accountability partner. Maybe it's a coach, just one person that's going to ask you each week or each month, did you do what you said was most important this time last week? And in work, having a cadence every week or every month where you really assess progress and you say honestly to each other, either, well done, this is going to plan and this is incredible, or this isn't going to plan, what are we going to do to get back on track? And holding each other to account, I think, is really important.
I love that. Having an accountability partner is, for me, the secret formula behind actually getting shit done.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Oftentimes, with myself, if I've got a meeting planned with somebody, I'm never late to that meeting. I'm always prepared, early, ready to go. But if I've got something in my calendar that I need to do and there's nobody else involved, I'll often just, waste the time and it just gets moved, it gets pushed. Tomorrow becomes the next day and the next day. So I find that even putting that in my calendar with a time and a date and a schedule and a location, it goes back to the Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read that book.
I have. I actually read James Clear's newsletter and blog before he published the book.
Okay.
So I want to say I knew him before he was cool.
Yeah. Well, the book was a compilation of the blog posts and stuff, right? So you read that book before it was a book, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Also, I do a lot of triathlon on the side, and a kind of cheat code there is finding a group of friends or a running club or a triathlon club who are training for the same thing, because I think it's much easier to show up and do your sessions when you've got friends that are doing the same thing. Again, if you're on your own and there's no accountability and it's just you and yourself, it's easy to skip a session. It's easy to wake up a bit later and sort of not show up. If you've messaged your friends saying, I'll see you at the park at 7 a.m, we're going to ride 4 hours today, you'll be there. Yeah.
Let me ask you about the triathlons, because that is something very, very cool. Most people, they don't build a business, raise millions and build a successful product and get that out there to the world and own their sector, whilst they're also running, Ironman triathlons, right? That's quite a niche category, James. You figured that out. But on your website, you've got a public list of things that you'd like to do before you die.
I love how much research you've done on this. This is great. Yes, I do.
But when we're not having a podcast, I have a recruiting company, so we have to research in detail every candidate. So it just bleeds into every asset of my life. I'll be meeting with one of my wife's friends or something, and I'm so back in 2017 when you were at this place, I was this guy's stalking me. I just can't help it.
Just research. No,
yes, in my DNA, man. So you got this list from learning Taekwondo to visiting every island in Scotland to opening up a cycling cafe. Now, one of these targets was to become an Ironman triathlete, which you've done twice now. Tell me about that journey, because that is equally as impressive as the business that you built.
Thank you. I got into running when I was 16. I had really bad insomnia. I was awake till 4 or 5 most mornings before school, and then showing up to school like a zombie with about 2 hours sleep. And I was experiencing a lot of anxiety. The insomnia wasn't helping the anxiety, and nothing seemed to be working. I was seeing a therapist. They were telling me, try listening to whale sounds at night, read a book before you go to bed. Wasn't working. And then I was at a music school, and it was a boarding school, and one of the house staff said to me, why don't you come on a run with me? We're going to run 3K, we'll run for 15 minutes, see how that feels. And I passed out afterwards and slept like a baby. And I realized if I exhausted myself physically, I was more likely to fall asleep at night. And then I started to feel all the other benefits of exercise, the endorphin rush, the sense of progress, the community in running. And I fell in love with running, got into cycling at university. Everyone cycles everywhere at Cambridge. And I did a duathlon straight after uni. I knew triathlon was inevitable. It felt like it was calling me like this siren call. But I hadn't swam properly in a decade. And every triathlete will tell you they've got one discipline that is their weaker discipline. For me, it was and is and probably will always be swimming. And in 2019, with a flatmate of mine at the time, we said, we're going to do our first triathlon this year. We did a sprint triathlon, which was really fun. Got the bug, signed up for an Olympic triathlon 3 months later, really got the bug. I was in Poland on holiday, doing some solo travel. I found myself in a bar and I was slightly drunk. And on the way home, I decided I'm going to do a half Ironman in 3 months. So I signed up for a half Ironman, loved that. And then, once you've done the half, it's a bit like a marathon. I think once you've done the half marathon, there's a part of you that knows, okay, we're going to do a marathon at some point. And yeah, I did my first Ironman in 21 and second one in 22. And the one I was supposed to do, Ironman Wales, was delayed twice because of COVID and all of that. But people do ask me, how do you fit it in? Yeah. How are you able to train for this Ironman and run a business? For me, all the training and all the sport is what helps me perform at work. And if I didn't go running a few times a week, if I didn't go out on my bike, I don't think I'd be as effective at work. I don't think I'd have as much energy. I don't think I'd be as focused. I think my baseline mood would be lower. I think I would probably be slightly more cynical and pessimistic than optimistic and sort of forward-looking. I think my sleep would probably be a little bit worse if I wasn't training. So for me, and the way my brain chemistry works, I think doing all of the training is what helps me perform at work.
Do you meditate?
I try to.
Yeah.
I am, yes, I've dipped my toes in a few times. I've never been able to establish a daily habit, but I am actually, I haven't really shared this yet, so it will be public once we record once you release the episode. I'm about to go on a 2-month sabbatical.
Oh, nice.
In 5 days. And I'm flying to Japan on Saturday.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to do is establish a daily meditation habit. I'm going to find a silent retreat for a few days. And I'm meeting up with a friend in Japan who has meditated with me and shown me, I guess, meditative experiences that blew my mind.
Okay.
We sat and meditated together, I think, last year. And I opened my eyes at the end and thought 15 minutes had passed, and it was about 1 hour and 45.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm very curious about and hoping to go deeper on.
Okay.
Over
So
the next
you're
couple
doing
months.
Japan. I think you're doing other places as well?
I'm going to Japan for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm going to see a friend in South Korea, in Seoul, for a week. And then the rest of the time off is unplanned at the moment. It's sort of a reset and a sort of recharge after nearly 10 years building Encore. I might go and cycle around the north coast of Scotland.
Yeah.
I might just stay at home like a potato and do nothing for 4 weeks and just let my nervous system relax. But yeah, the goal is to come back end of June sort of refreshed and ready to go again.
I love that because you are sticking to the public list of things on your website. I did see Japan and South Korea on there, so you can finally cross those off. Similar to you, I have a bit of an obsession with doing crazy things before I die. Your list is perhaps a little bit more crazy than mine with some of the examples, but where does this urgency to complete tasks before you're gone come from?
I think I wasn't expecting this podcast to go so deep, when you think about life being finite and you think, I'm going to die, you suddenly value the time you have, and I want to experience as much as I can before the end. So putting that list together, I don't think it gives me necessarily a sense of urgency, but I do think, the Stoics thought a lot about death. There was a lot of like negative visualization. I do think when you are conscious of the fact that this isn't forever, we've got like limited time, you start to prioritize doing cool. Some of the best experiences in my life so far have come from doing things like Ironmans, going on 5-day bike trips, like getting to that mental place where for me, my mind is empty, my mind is clear, I have all the endorphins and the serotonin and all of that rushing through my body, and I feel incredibly like at peace and sort of fulfilled. So a lot of the items on that list, to people who haven't experienced that, it might just look like someone who's very type A saying, I want to do this ultra marathon, I want to do this race. To me, I want to see what happens when I spend 12 hours running. I want to see what happens if I do like a 2-day ultra marathon. Like what kind of mental space do you get into? Because I have a feeling it would be quite unique and quite special. And the ultra marathon and the adventure and all the training leading up to it is all going to be very fun. But I'm curious to know, like, what does it feel like to be in that space? Yeah. One of the other items is buy a motorbike.
I saw that.
That looks a little bit stupid.
You had a picture of it as well.
It's bright blue.
Yeah.
It has a yellow Rizla logo on it. I don't smoke. I will never smoke. But I've seen this bike in the street, and I fell in love with it. And I really want to own that bike at some point.
Yeah.
But I want to see what it's like to, drive a motorbike at, 100 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour, and to experience that flow and that sort of adrenaline rush. So yeah, for me, it's about experiencing different mental states that come from physical exertion or adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a human skull, not a real human skull. It's
wow.
Yeah. It's not a real one.
Okay.
It was actually bought from Pets at Home. It was meant to be for a fish tank.
Oh, okay.
Like with a fish food inside. It's a little bit less.
You should probably start the story like that. I went to Pets at Home and I got a human skull rather than the other way around. So I have a human skull.
Yeah. I don't have fish, but I keep it on my desk as memento mori, Latin. Remember, you will die.
Yep.
For me, it's the most powerful way of looking at life. Like knowing that I used to have this other thing as well in my old house where on the wall I'd have like the amount of weeks that I have left, just estimates.
I've really thought about that before because I've heard from people who've done that. It's really powerful, right?
So powerful, man.
Yeah.
And you realize like I'm probably a quarter of the way through my life, right?
What age are you?
I'm 27. Yeah.
Okay. I hope you're a quarter of the way. That would be 108. That would be pretty good.
Well, with the impending singularity and everything that's going to happen, who knows? We might be living forever, but
who knows?
Yeah, people have thought about living forever for forever, but it hasn't happened yet. But
getting closer.
We'll see what happens with AGI and everything. You posted in 2018 a quote on your Instagram, which said, "Keep death in mind at all times."
I was about to mention that. How did you? Yeah.
From the Bushido samurai philosophy. I couldn't work out if it was you who posted it or one of your team that wrote it and put it on your desk or something.
I wrote it, and my team thought I was a little bit unhinged.
Yeah,
and,
I love that quote.
And a lot of my friends, I've told them about this quote, and they've kind of said, what the James? Like, why would you have a Post-it note on your desk that says, keep death in mind at all times? Again, to me, it's sort of liberating and freeing to look at that Post-it and think, I've got finite time. I want to use my time well. I want to, work hard. I want to be successful, and I want to experience the world. To me, I find it very galvanizing. I think I read somewhere a couple of days ago that all fear ultimately comes from a fear of death. And if you can overcome the fear of death, then you can sort of transcend most like worldly fears. Easier said than done. I'm definitely afraid of death, but when I think about this line, keep death in mind at all times, even though I'm afraid of what might happen afterwards, and in my mind it's nothing, which is what's quite scary, it makes me value the time I have now. And also this line, live every day as if it's your last.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of pressure to put on yourself, but it really does change how you approach life if you think, actually, this is it. I'm not getting there's no more time after this.
Okay. I won't leave it on that note. It was a very deep and philosophical past few minutes. So let me finish with, I guess if people want to find more about you, find more about Encore, where should they go? What's the website?
So we are encoremusicians.com, and they can find us on social media, TikTok, Instagram. We've been experimenting with TikTok recently, and that is a brave new world for business marketing. And yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn is probably the platform I'm most active on, actually.
Okay, and just search James McAulay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for a great chat. That was honestly the best researched podcast I've ever been on. And you went all the way back. 6 years. Nice.
But I'm going to clip that, and then if anybody ever says, I don't want to come on the podcast, Alfie, then boom.
Just send them that. Yeah.
You're now receiving this clip. Come on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., etc. And I'll see you in the next episode.